Beth, please could you introduce yourself to our listeners, just kind of who you are, where you're from, what you do, just so they can get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Beth and I am the founder and director of Let's Talk About Loss, which is an organisation that supports young people aged 18 to 35 who have been bereaved. I lost my mum, Susan, when I was 20. She had cancer of the bile duct, which is quite rare. I didn't even know where a bile duct was in the body. So it's sort of in the liver. It's a type of liver cancer, and it's quite rare for a woman in her 50s to get it. So she was diagnosed literally excuse me, she was diagnosed literally the week before I went to uni. And she was like super strong, like, you know, go to uni, I'll be fine, I'll totally, like, everyone gets over cancer these days, like, it'll be fine. And, you know, like, I just didn't really know, she was my mum, so I just believed her. I didn't really worry that she, might be suffering with it worse than she was saying she was. And then 2 years later, in July 2015, she died. And it was quite sudden at the end because the cancer spread quite rapidly, and it got to her kidneys, and then that killed her quite quickly. So it was horrible and awful. But I guess similar to you, Kat, and like why you and Sam set up the podcast, I just knew that I just wanted to do something that felt like more positive, and I just felt like I was totally alone in this grief. Like, I had my siblings who were younger than me, but I never wanted to like burden them. So I just wanted to do something that was positive and would help other people and would encourage other people to talk about it with me. It was like all selfish, basically. I just wanted people to talk to me about it. So I set up Let's Talk About Loss, and found that young people do really have this appetite to talk about it, and they just need to find other people who get it and who ask the right questions and don't say the wrong thing and can like laugh about it and cry about it and all those sort of things without just being really awkward. That's you know, been such a positive from it. You know, like everyone listening to this podcast, I would give it all up to have my mum back, but the reality is like that isn't going to happen. And so I just, you know, just love that I can do something you know, positive to like remember her and celebrate her and like help other people who might be feeling really alone in their grief.
How soon after your mum passing did you set that up?
Well, I started blogging about 18 months after she died, and I'd been writing sort of blogs but not publishing them for a little while already.
Such a good outlet for grief, isn't it?
Writing. So helpful. And especially if you know that you're not going to publish it, because then you can be like so honest with what you say and just like get it all out. And that can be really cleansing, I think, if you can just be like, get all this
I hate my life.
And so it was 18 months before I actually published something. And then it was 2018 when we started our meetups, which is now the core of what we do. It's sort of monthly, usually, if it's not a lockdown, in-person meetups for young people who've been bereaved. So that was probably 3 years later. And it was at that point, I guess, that for me blogging wasn't enough. I like wanted actual real life friends who I could like go to the pub with or like, go to a bar. And that's why like starting the meetups was just so selfish. I was like, I want friends who have also been bereaved. I will gather these people and make them be friends with me. And for some strange reason, they all came.
What was your first meetup like? Oh, sorry, go on, Nick.
All I was going to say is that I thought I was doing it for like a selfless reason when I started. I mean, I'm going to introduce myself in a minute, but like when I started doing it, I thought it was like, I'm going to help other people out, and it's, it's going to be great to help all these poor people who have also lost parents and stuff. And like, I suppose it was like 6 months in for me that I was like, well, actually, no, this is actually for me. Like, I'm not actually doing it for anyone else. Like, I don't know if you've had that feeling as well. Like,
it's so helpful.
True.
It's so helpful just for your own grief, I think, and not everyone's like this, but some people want to be like doing something, and even if that's like people maybe starting their own blog or their own Instagram account or doing videos or whatever it is, like just feeling like you are like doing something to make everything mean something and feel less like, what the hell just happened? Why did it why has this happened to me? That's a question I was always asking.
100%. I think that so many of us have asked that question as well. That's kind of what you write in your blogs, isn't it? Or whenever you're writing down, you're like, why the hell has this happened to me? Like, this is so unfair. Like, what is going on? What was your first ever meetup like? Like, you must have been absolutely kind of petrified, just because as soon as you kind of go into something, you're like, is this even going to take off?
Yeah. So I was living in Nottingham at the time. I live in Bristol now, and I'd finished uni, so I knew people. I knew lots of people, but I didn't know many people who were bereaved. My younger brother, also lived in the city, so I was like, look, me and you are going to do this, and so if no one else comes, we can just pretend that we were just like on a lovely sibling evening. But actually, when I put it out on Facebook that I wanted to sort of like meet up with other, and if I said, if you're bereaved, would you like to come along? Friends of friends were like getting in touch saying, oh, I heard about this from this, this person shared this, I really want to come along. And so quite quickly I was like, okay, there'll at least be a handful of people who I like didn't know that well. I sort of knew of you, or like, we were friends on Facebook, but I couldn't remember where I knew you from. Those sort of people who, and so they weren't necessarily exactly, they weren't necessarily like my closest friends, but they have become that. And so the first meetup was just, I think there was about 7 or 8 of us. Someone brought wine, we were all just in my friend's flat in Nottingham, and it just felt so powerful. And so many people left, and I assumed would be like, well, that was lame, that was weird. And it was on like a Friday night as well. I was like, what am I thinking? Like, who wants to spend their Friday night like drinking wine, talking about grief? Turns out loads of people want to do that.
I would do that.
So then very quickly loads of people were like, when's the next one? What are we doing next time? And I was like,
that's amazing.
What have I started? what have I done? And now here I am, running a charity without ever knowing how I got here.
I mean, we'll talk more in a minute about how it's grown so quickly, but before we do that, over to you, Nick, to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and a brief introduction to your own loss journey.
I'm 28. I live in Newcastle. As you can probably tell from my accent.
Woo.
I'm not a Geordie, but I was brought up in London, moved to Portsmouth, and then moved as far away from Portsmouth as I possibly could because I didn't like it. I mean, that's where both my parents died, so I sort of blame Portsmouth for that. I know that Portsmouth didn't kill my parents, but like, I need to blame something, and sorry, Portsmouth, but you're the issue.
Sorry to anybody living in Portsmouth.
So we moved to Portsmouth when I was 16 as like this big happy family, and then not long after my mum was diagnosed with cancer, and then passed away sort of 2 years after that. When I was 18, and then I think I was 24. I'm not really good with dates and ages and things. It was, I was 24 when my dad passed away. I was just starting my dissertation, which was fun. We were doing dry January at the time, so that was also fun.
Not what you need.
No.
That's a shit month.
Yeah. So it was a bit of a shit month anyway. And I was, yeah. In all fairness, it probably helped because alcohol has probably not been
Yeah.
too kind to me with grief.
Mm.
As I suppose probably a lot of people would agree. Like, I have no recollection of my mum's funeral at all. Like, I wasn't pissed during the actual funeral, but like I've somehow managed to block that out of my mind, and then also got really drunk afterwards and don't have any recollection of that day. Like, it's a complete and utter like white space of a day, if that makes sense. And like, and I sort of think I wish I remembered anything about it. I also think that there's probably a reason that I have blanked it out as well. But yeah, sorry, I'm waffling on. Where was I?
It's all right. I just want to say though, I don't know about you guys, but I actually have like severe memory loss from anything pre my mum dying. Like, I find remembering anything from when I was like in primary school to when she died really difficult to like grab hold of. I hate it. Like, my boyfriend, we went to the same high school and stuff, and we recently reconnected, and now we're like happy families. But he remembers so much from high school, like everything. And I'm like, I can barely remember who I sat in form with every single morning for 5 years. Like, for some reason, my memory is just like gone. It's
I
so
think
weird.
as well, you get like, I categorize everything in my life as either before mum died or after mum died. So I'm like, oh, well, mum was alive, so it must have been pre-2015. And that, I can't remember the date, but I can remember that I had a mum at that time. So, and other people are like, that is a horrible way of, and I'm like, no, it's just a really helpful marker in my life to remember things.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see it as an, but it is like, it's quite like, it's when you have such a shocking thing happen to you, it just takes up so much space in your brain, doesn't it? I always think of like my brain just literally being like full of grief, and the other memories are like, well, there's no space here, so we're off. Like, just got too much going on.
So true. It's so true. Nick, obviously you are the host of the Newcastle meetup, right?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Woo! So talk to me then about how you got into that.
Yeah, so I was watching a program on, I think it was like BBC Three or something. It was to do with One Direction, or was it Robinson, or
George Shelley? George Shelley from what group was he in? I hope he never listens to this podcast. Union J. He was in Union J.
I thought it was One Direction. Oh God. Anyway,
no, they're all their boy bands are the same.
It's not my kind of music, if I'm being honest. But you know, I watched the program, and I saw you on it, Beth, and I was like, oh, that looks really cool. And I know you were like doing blogs, and I never talked about loss or done anything with loss before. Like, I'd always just sort of I suppose brushed it under the carpet as something that didn't affect me. Like, and that was my way of coping. Like, I laugh things off, like, you know, like, and doesn't matter how deeply messed up I am, like, I'll walk out of the room and then I'll make a joke, like, and it'll all be fine, sort of thing. And it was the first time and I just wrote down, I think it was like 3 A4 pages on a Word document of everything, like, and it was just all jumbled mess, and it was like, it probably didn't make any sense to anyone. Like, it was just it was just verbal diarrhea that just was on page. And I'm dyslexic as well, so it wouldn't have made any sense. I do need to read things and like, you know, I've got a degree, so I can work it out, but the first time I write things, they don't make any sense. And I just sent it to Beth, and I don't know if you read it or not, but it didn't matter. I made that step, and I'd written it down, and like, I didn't need anyone to read it. I just needed to write it down and it to be a thing, if that makes sense. Like
validate your own grief, like make it, you know. And then, like, it must have been, and I was like, oh, these meetups sound really cool. Like, if you ever like want one in Newcastle, let me know. And I don't know how you do it, Beth, because it was literally about 1.5 years later, you just messaged me going, oh, we've got another person, like how you'd even remembered me as a human being, like, or like,
like, do you know what I mean? It's just bizarre to me, like, that you remembered that, because you must have a lot going on with the charity.
Yeah,
so,
I
like,
mean, I won't lie. There was a spreadsheet, and your name
that
was
makes
on
sense.
it.
That makes sense to me now, like, because I was just like, how?
That's very
I was like,
modest of you, Beth.
it's cool, like, don't get me wrong, and you were listening. So yeah, like, I don't know how long we've been doing it now, to be honest. Like, we had 2 meetups before lockdown.
Yeah,
We've
it's
had,
just the start of this year, wasn't it?
yeah, it's not been too long. And
Then
so,
the pandemic.
and then we had a pandemic, and then my co-host was due to be moving back anyway, so she's moved back. So if anyone is listening from Newcastle and would like to join me, feel free.
Hey, nice, cool.
Am I like, is that right?
Great
Yeah.
plug. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, we've had a couple of Zoom meetings. We personally found that people are quite anxious. Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's my interpretation of it. Is we don't have a massive outtake on the Zoom calls, but we've got what's called a WhatsApp group that's like constantly on the go, and I think people prefer to just sort of dig into that as and when they're ready, like, and when they find things, and like, it's very like, I don't want to say service users. What are our people called, Beth?
I don't know. Just grievers.
Grievers.
Yeah.
So like,
Pals.
yeah, we've like the Grievers. The Grievers. That sounds like a really terrible band, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, if Nick Hambrey and the Grievers, that sounds good.
That's a band.
I love it.
But yeah, like, so everyone's like chipped in with ideas and things, and now, like, if we have like something like a trigger, we have trigger warnings, and it's just like all the users have sort of inputted different little sort of techniques that we've sort of added on, which has been quite good, that everyone's had their say. It doesn't really feel like I'm a host, like everyone seems to be it just sort of happens, if that makes any sense. Like, well, obviously,
well, that's always the point, isn't it, that you're just young and bereaved yourself, and
like the
just,
facilitator.
it's just friends.
Yeah, exactly.
We actually have a small like WhatsApp group from other people. A few of us have met on Instagram that have also got a dead mum, particularly dead mums for some reason. And you do find that when people talk about something that's quite heavy, it's good because there's no pressure for everyone to respond. But there will always be at least 1 or 2 people that are in the right mental state to be able to provide that person with the kind of support they need at that time. So that is the amazing thing about having groups, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have had Zoom fatigue, where they have just been on like so many Zoom calls and so many like things for work, that actually they're not always wanting to like necessarily join a meetup. But I think just having the space and just being there, so that, like you say, Nick, if they just want to message and say, oh, today's tough, it's like really important. And that's why I love, you know, we've never wanted it to feel too like pressured or formal, but it's just like friends that you can text and be like, guys, today is rough, and
Today
like you
is
say,
a bad day.
exactly, and like you say, you know that like there'll be 1 or 2 people who are like, actually today's a good day for me, so like I can sort of help you out. It's really nice.
We have a thing where people post, like, if someone's having a shit day, they'll post a pic, like someone else will post a picture of their cat doing something stupid. Like, I don't know why.
Amazing.
Like, you know, oh, you're having a crap day, here's a picture of Tiddles on the floor or drinking out the toilet or something. Like, so
what
yeah,
more
that's
do you
quite
need?
exactly.
So one of the big things that I wanted to speak about in this episode was actually the upcoming Father's Day this weekend, which, you know, God help us, there are so many days in the year that are just like excruciatingly annoying and painful and all over social media. It's a nightmare. So I suppose, obviously, Beth, you haven't lost a dad, but you know, obviously the loss of your mum. Approaching these days can be kind of, you know, very triggering anyway, because you've got a lot of people on social media talking about their parents. So would you say that losing your mum has made you like way more hyper aware of these kind of celebratory days that happen throughout the year.
Absolutely. And do you know what? I was actually thinking about this because, like everyone, I've been getting all those awful marketing emails saying, don't forget to buy your dad a card. And I've actually started unsubscribing from those as well, because even though my dad is still around, I just find it really cruel marketing and really unnecessary. And I don't know about you, but like the brands that do it, I just feel like you're coming across so like desperate for sales that you're happy to like pick on this day that for like there's so many reasons why Father's Day might be hard for you. It's not just that your dad might be dead. Like so many people have a difficult relationship with their dad or estranged, like their dad's ill. And so I just find it really unhelpful. And now, because of doing like what I do and helping so many other people, I'm like angry for them.
I'm
like,
I'm just like,
how dare you?
Stop him.
And I'm like, don't you email me about Father's Day. This is not fair. Like I will buy my dad what my dad wants. I do not need your email, like Weatherspoons or whoever you are. Like, leave me alone. Sorry, I shouldn't target them specifically.
You should.
Other pubs are available.
I found, like, I got an email from Jack Daniels the other day, and they had.
This was the worst one I've seen.
This is the worst one I've ever. Like, I am very good at just ignoring emails. Like, I can just. It doesn't really bother me in general because I just think I know it's a consumerist thing, like Father's Day and all this, and they're going to target it. But obviously, with the lockdown and everything, the way Jack Daniels went was this Father's Day. Be with your dad in spirit, and I was like, oh, like that touched a nerve, like, to be fair. And I was like, you know, when you just like, I genuinely was like, I don't know whether to laugh or cry at this. Like, it's like unbelievable. Like, it's just, I was lost for words. And like, as I say, like, I normally just skip through the emails and delete them and whatever. But that one did like throw me, and I was like, "You bastards!"
Literally.
Especially as I'd sorry, I was just going to say, especially as I'd literally bought a litre of Jack Daniels the day before, and I was like, "That's in my house, and I've just supported them." Like,
damn, that's the thing. But what I don't understand is that these huge brands must have huge marketing teams, and at least one person on this marketing team must have lost a parent or have had some sort of difficult situation at some point. And I also think with regards to social media ads, they can do so much online now, and I'm like, how have you not come up with something yet that people can respond to an ad and say, I don't want to be targeted with Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, those kind of ads. Like,
I did see an email from there's a cards company called Thought, I think. And I remember seeing that they emailed everyone with, if you don't want to. It was Mother's Day though. I don't know if they've done one for Father's Day. I'm assuming they would, but
hopefully.
And I thought that was a really good, like, and the thing is, it gave them loads of good publicity as well. So it did did them a favour.
Everyone who was briefed were like, "These guys are amazing."
Yeah, I know. Like, so it was quite clever on two counts really, because it got them all over the news, and then it also made them look like a good company. So fair played, thoughtful.
With yourself, Beth, are you wary then of what you post on social media? You kind of join in with the whole Happy Father's Day, Dad on social media now? Or
it's so hard, isn't it? Because when people do that on Mother's Day and post a picture of their mum, I'm not angry at them, because obviously, like, their mums are great and I want them to celebrate their mums. But I'm like, really, I think I do often do a post about my dad, because especially now we've lost mum, like, my dad
he's a mum and a dad all in one.
Yeah, it's like such a different relationship. But I try and be really careful about the language I use. So instead of saying like, my dad's better than yours, or like, you know, there's never been a better dad, I'm like, this is my dad and I love him.
He's above average.
Yeah, he's fine.
He's all right. He's a decent guy.
But I try, I guess, because I try not to use put a caption that would be triggering. But I think it's important, isn't it, that we remember that like people aren't doing that to be spiteful. They're just doing it because they maybe don't understand that for other people it might be really painful to see.
And I would be doing that had I not experienced my loss.
I always used to put a post up of my mum on Mother's Day like, she's so amazing. And now I'm like, that would have been hard for others to see. You don't realise, do you, until you're like, until you're in the club, you just don't realise. And I think the best thing that I always say to people is just, that if you go on social media on that day, you're going to see those posts. And so if that is hard for you, just have a day away from don't let yourself be upset by that. And just 100%. Just put the phone down, because you're never not going to see something. So it's easier just to remove it as an option.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Nick, obviously you are the only one out of the three of us who has, one, lost your father, but two, lost both of your parents. And I can only imagine, I didn't actually know this before starting this episode. I can only imagine how difficult that is, because I've talked to a few people who, I call them platinum members of the DPC, and honestly, I am just astounded every single time I record an episode with them, because people's positivity and resilience is just incredible. And
I'll tell you what though, with lockdown and everything, everyone's worried for their parents, and I don't have to worry about that, which is bliss in a way. Everyone's worried, that COVID's going to get their families, and I'm just I know it's ridiculous, but I remember, because I don't know if you guys make jokes about it with your friends, that's one of the things I do.
All the time.
And and then they're that awkward, am I allowed to laugh at this? And you're like, no, you're not. I'm just no, of course you are. And you just play with it. But it was I found a tweet, and it was to do with them talking about reopening the takeaways and everything with lockdown, and someone had retweeted that with, no one cares about reopening these, people just want to know when they can go and hug their families. And I was like, well, my family's all dead and I just want a Nando's, and I sent that to my mates. And I sent that to my mates, and they were like, is that okay? I was like, yeah, of course.
That's amazing.
And and you just sort of you make positives out of things that shouldn't be positives.
Well, you have to adjust, don't you?
Exactly.
Otherwise, what is your life going to be? You can't allow your whole existence to be miserable. You have to find ways to not just to survive, but to actually enjoy your life again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that you sort of have to do. You either have to do, or you go down a slippery path, and I wouldn't allow myself to do that, and that's not something that either of my parents would want for me, and that's something I've sort of accepted. And yeah, if I can be happy, then I will, and if I need to be miserable, then I will. And it's not something that I'm going to put pressure on myself to worry either way, if that makes sense.
So how were your Father's Days then? What, when your dad first passed away, did you find them really difficult? And then do you do special things on Father's Day, or do you kind of try and just leave it?
The first one, I can't recall. I think because I was going to Glastonbury the next weekend. So nice. I think I'd already gone to London to spend it with, so I think I was with friends anyway. So I don't think, I don't really have a recollection of it. And me personally, I just I'd like to work them. I work shift work and work long days, and I prefer personally just to do a long day and crack on. That's how I deal with it. I appreciate that a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that. And the idea of that would just be no, I need to sit in bed and cry and eat donuts or whatever. If I can just, if I can work a 14-hour shift where I'm on the go constantly, and then get home and go to sleep or whatever, then that's what I do. But then I think adapting is you have to adapt. Like if you find like you've had a couple that have been terrible, and like there's a reason for that. Like there's no point in sticking to a tradition that you've done if that then is causing you issues. So it's just sort of accepting you don't have to do things a certain way. Like
definitely.
So there's that. And now what I do now is the last couple of so like we never made it a big thing when he was alive, so I haven't.
So don't make it a big thing.
Yeah, like
now. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
I
If
get that.
you know, so I would have bought him like a Toblerone and a card. So like I would have spent about a £5 on him. So what I do is I like every Father's Day and Mother's Day I donate £5 to like a random charity that they would have supported. But I do it like it's probably a weird thing, but I go onto like one of them Just Giving pages and I find someone that's trying to raise money for that, and then I'll like just go on and donate £5 with my name saying good luck. But with the weird like, because in my head I'm giggling thinking they're going to be racking their brains trying to work out who the hell this guy is who's just donated a £5 to their account. Like, do you know what I mean? Because like I don't know if you've ever done any like fundraising challenges, and like the people will come through and you'll be like, who's that? Or maybe like maybe they're like them, but they don't know me at all. So like, so they will just be like, they'll probably ask like all their people, and like I get a bit of enjoyment. Like, and like obviously I'm doing good, so I know like something good's coming from that day, and I'm also having that little bit of a laugh with myself that like.
I just love that. I love that you're just messing with people just for your own enjoyment.
Yeah, like
what could be also a really like somber day? You're like just giggling to yourself.
Yeah, like,
who donated me that £5?
And it's just something I do that like, and as I say, like it's a good thing because it's a charity. Like, and I know how hard it is to raise money. So like, you know, it'll make someone's day, and like.
I think that's so important as well. That actually, like you said, you just have whatever Father's Day you need to have. Like if you just want to work it and get on with it, great. Like and just sort of do that without any like worry or thinking like, oh, am I doing it right? Like is this what I should be doing because I'm bereaved, so shouldn't I be really like sad and like you say, like in bed eating donuts? But like actually if work's really helpful, then great. Like it is just a day that is just made up by marketing people. So like
with everything, it's the days running up to it that are always so much worse than the actual day itself. Like all the social media marketing and stuff like that, and going out. Luckily this year we haven't been able to go out to the shops, because when you go out shopping, it's, oh my god, just like everywhere. It's like just consuming everything. You're like, piss off, honestly.
Yeah.
Just do one.
Yeah.
I've had a weird one this year where my boyfriend is an amazing baker, like cookies, brownies, the lot. Like I'm talking out of this world. And he's started his own little kind of side business on the weekend.
Get him on Bake Off.
Yeah, honestly, I think he could do. But obviously, I've had to think, right, okay, so it's Father's Day. So how are we going to approach people who want to buy like boxes of cookies and brownies for their dads? So I had to kind of like sit and think about how I was going to message that really carefully, because I think the worst thing about Father's Day is that people feel left out when they can't partake in something. And it's like FOMO, isn't it? We hate it. We hate not being able to take part in whatever's happening. So I always think, like, if I can sit and have this conversation with myself, why the hell can't these massive companies sit and have this conversation with themselves? Like, how are we going to market this? I understand that it's a marketing, you know, it's that time of year and whatever they need to do. But like, why can't you just have a sit down and think, how are we going to say it so that, you know, maybe we can say whether you're giving it to your father figure, a special man in your life, or just for yourself. Like, it doesn't need to be just for him on that day. It just drives me mad.
Have you guys heard of the Others Day campaign? It's a really, really cool campaign, and I love it. And so on Mother's Day and Father's Day, they basically like rebrand it as Others Day, and they just get people to celebrate like whoever it is that you want to celebrate that day. So like you said, maybe you didn't have a dad, but you've got someone in your life who has been like a dad to you and like had, you know, and so you can just celebrate them. And I love that. And I just think like that's such an easy way to change a conversation, isn't it?
Definitely.
And I've had like a mother figure that, you know, like I don't know if you've had it, but when a parent dies, you like find someone to fill that sort of void of like,
oh my god,
that
I have
mothering
forced
role.
my adoption on so many of my friends' moms. I'm like, look at me now, please.
And I've had one that I've known since I was like 2 or 3, and like she's always been amazing, like, and she is, and like it's only been like, you know, my mum died 10 years ago this year, and like for the last 2 years I've bought her a Mother's Day card, and I couldn't before that because I just haven't had it in me, and like I've always thought I'm not replacing my mum with this woman, and it's just in the last few years I've sort of been able to accept it and do it. But I love the idea of like an others card that like that would be actually better to do. Like,
wouldn't it be great if like all like Card Factory and Moonpig and stuff started creating cards for people to send to people, you know, on those days? Be amazing.
And I think it would like remove the stigma attached to like, oh, I don't actually have a mum for whatever reason, you know, if I still have one but she's dead, or like I never knew my mum, or you know, I was adopted so I've got a complicated, you know, whatever it is. I just think like families are just not traditional anymore anyway, are they? Like so many people, there's not many people who are like, yes, I have a mother and I have a father. Like you just have so many other people in your life, so people need to just be really recognizing that, don't they? And I think, you know, especially when people are saying like, we should have a grandparents' day and we should have a siblings' day. I'm like, why don't we just have one day where we're like, this is the family day, and whoever is family to me, I'm gonna buy them chocolates.
That would be brilliant.
Be done with it.
Nobody, you just wouldn't feel left out.
Exactly.
So much better. So before we started recording this podcast, I think a few days ago, I asked my audience on DPC Instagram what questions they would like me to ask in this week's episode. So number 1 is it good if we share our grief on social media?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it depends what you want from doing it, to be honest. Like sometimes you just need attention from people and like everyone to feel sorry for you, like, and that's okay. Like, and sometimes you do just want people to say, oh, it's crap being you, like, or like, but then I think I personally think like sharing it in, I found with like the Let's Talk About Loss group is often probably more helpful because people are on the same page, whereas you'll often get responses if you put something out on just Facebook or anything, you'll get responses from like people you've never like not spoken to in 5 years, and they'll just be like, oh, I'm really thinking of you at this hard time. And you're like, no, you're not. Like, I haven't even spoken to you in 5 years. Like,
I think sometimes it could probably make you feel more alone, because I think obviously from my point of view, well, from all of our point of views really, we come from a kind of privileged space in grief where we can't openly talk about it or post about it because we're ingrained within these communities. So we have a lot of people on our social channels who have got very similar experiences to us. So I 100% agree with what you're saying there, Nick. It could be from, trying to think, pre-DPC. Whenever I did post about my mum, it was very much just from a selfish point of view, where I wanted people to like acknowledge my pain and what I'm going through.
But there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at the same time.
Because I think we need it. And sometimes I think as well, it's to remind people that your parent existed, because it can feel like everybody around you has forgotten what's happened, and you just want it to be like, because everybody else posts photos of their families and stuff all the time through the year, and you just want this one day where it's like, you know what, this is about my mum or my dad or my parents.
I think just find people that you trust. And like Nick said, if you just post it out to like the masses, you're gonna get people that you weren't expecting to see it, because you forget like who you're even friends with on Facebook, who will respond. And so, you know, not to just like plug Let's Talk About Loss, but a space like a Let's Talk About Loss meetup is a really good space where you like know that everyone will come back with like appropriate replies. And also I noticed a couple of my friends use the close friends feature on Instagram, where you can just show your stories to your close friends, and I'm always like, oh yay, I'm in their close friends group. It's like so nice. But little things like that, you could maybe be like, you know, share with a certain group of people who you feel you can trust. Not everyone needs to see it, you know. But I'm so passionate about people sharing their grief and talking through the taboos and just like helping dismantle this like whole, we don't talk about grief in the UK because we're like British and polite, and death is not something we like, you know. I hate that.
We get it over after the funeral.
Exactly. So like people sharing really openly is just amazing, because it's just helping smash through all those like barriers that society puts up.
The second thing was, it's my first Father's Day without my dad. How do I stop the guilt of resenting my mates with their dads? I get this.
I just said, don't, just hate them all. Just, you don't, just embrace it. Embrace the fact that you're gonna feel that way. Like there's, you don't have to feel bad about the fact that you're not. It's not that you're jealous that they're still alive. You're just jealous that yours isn't. If that makes sense. Like and it's sort of wishing that you had that opportunity to do the same thing. I don't think.
Again, it's like FOMO, natural. Isn't it? Like you're missing out on being able to celebrate your parent, and especially for people who didn't have the opportunity to celebrate their parent before they died, if they died unexpectedly or they didn't have a chance to kind of profess their love for them beforehand. I think, you know, seeing people do that can be really difficult. But I think you don't need to feel guilty for you know, being a bit pissed.
Like that's such a normal reaction. I think everyone who's ever lost anyone has felt that exact same thing on their first tough day or special day or anniversary or whatever it is. So definitely don't feel guilty about it. And I think, like I said earlier, those posts are coming whether you like it or not. So actually really helpful to just switch your phone off and not just like not look at them. And hopefully like by the next day you'll have like a whole new timeline and all those posts will be gone. And like, I guess as horrible as it sounds, like this is just a part of like being in the bereaved club, in the dead parent club. So find people who are also in the club, who get it, who you can just rant to and just be like, this is really horrible, I hate all my friends, because they'll be like Nick said, I've been there, like
same,
I've been there as well. And so it at least makes you feel like less alone in that, and less like, oh my gosh, is it just me? Does literally the whole world still have a dad, and it's like just me who's got this first Father's Day without him?
And I think if you do have the itch to go on social media on Father's Day or on any other celebratory day, maybe just head towards grief community platforms, because you're guaranteed to find something there that you can relate to. So whether they're sharing advice or just stories from other people, or it's just a little bit more of a positive and welcoming space to be in. So actively just find them rather than just kind of scroll aimlessly, and kind of try and get that social media fix if you need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all get it. Somebody else actually commented and replied to this and says that they use the day to celebrate their friends who are amazing dads. So like if you have friends who are dads, try and think about them on that day, and you know, the amazing things that they're doing, and maybe even just drop them a message and saying, hi mate, like, can't say this to my own dad, but you're a dad, so happy Father's Day. You know, then it does feel a little bit less like you're missing out on something.
Yeah, that's so nice. And like maybe people who it's like their first Father's Day, or that's really special.
Definitely.
I think it's cool. I still think if I text that to my mates, he'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about, mate?
Gay.
Weird.
Like, he'd be like, thanks, I think. Like,
The other one was, how do you deal with having to still celebrate Father's Day? So this particular person has to celebrate their father-in-law. So I suppose it is then if you have a partner who, you know, you're celebrating their parents on that day. So I don't know if either of you got any kind of experience with that or...
Yeah, sure. We actually didn't get to spend Mother's Day with my husband's mum because we were in lockdown, which was a real shame actually. And also my dad has got a new partner now, so she was sort of celebrating Mother's Day obviously with her kids. And I totally get it that it's really, really hard. But for me, that day is about remembering all the amazing things that my mum was and celebrating all the other like mum figures that I have in my life. Like you were saying earlier, Nick, like there's so many women in my life who are incredible. My mother-in-law is one of those. I guess she's my stepmom, although I've never called her that. My dad's partner it like is one of those. So, you know, just celebrating those women. And I guess if that is really hard for you to do, maybe you don't have a great relationship with them, or they're not good at understanding that it's a hard day for you, like have that conversation with your partner. And hopefully it'll be a bit easier this year if you, because of lockdown, like you might not actually be able to like be as such an intense day. But I think like be really honest about that. Don't keep quiet about like the fact that it's a hard day, and try and get to a point where your partner can still celebrate their father, but you are able to like be a little bit sort of like removed from that.
Like I think they can acknowledge your grief.
Yeah, exactly. Having those conversations are really important because they might just have not even thought, and like as harsh as that sounds, but like they might have just innocently been like, yay, it's Father's Day, and not thought, oh, this might be really hard. Just making sure that you're really honest about that, I think is really important.
Yeah, I agree with that. My partner's parents live in Fuerteventura, so we will very rare that I think that we will ever be doing the whole Mother's Day, Father's Day thing with them. So look, I don't have that experience myself, but I think I definitely agree with you, Beth, where, you know, just having those conversations, if somebody close to you is planning on, you are spending the day with them, just being like, you know, by the way, this day might kind of be a bit of a trigger for me. If I want to take some time out by myself, and that's why, don't be offended or whatever, and just kind of set those boundaries in the morning before you
absolutely and just be really confident about doing that, because you know, if they don't fully get it, the sad reality of the bereaved club is that they will get it, because one day they'll also be in the club. So just be like really confident about, these are my boundaries that I'm gonna set, and ain't nobody gonna stop me if I want to eat Ferrero Rochers for breakfast. That is what I'm gonna do. Okay.
I think that's one of the really funny things about being part of like this club, is that it's that knowing that every single person around us is one day going to be a part of this club. We've just kind of got there a lot sooner.
Yeah, it's really morbid, isn't it? But I'm like, welcome.
You're here.
Yeah.
It's so true.
We've been waiting for you.
I do kind of find that, like, my boyfriend says I'm a bit sick when like I see something on like a film or something, and I'm like, oh, they've joined the DPC, and he's like, you can't just say that, and I'm like, it's true.
But it's such a great club.
Everyone should be part of it. Oh.
No, you have to laugh about things like this though, don't you? Because the reality is, otherwise we would just cry. And we like, sorry if you're not comfortable with it, but we're gonna make inappropriate jokes, because
and it's our reality. Like, this is what our lives are now.
Exactly.
And like we said earlier, you have to find some enjoyment in what you're going through.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
I also asked the audience for some advice to give to people during Father's Day weekend, and you know, I thought we could talk through some of these, and perhaps if either of you have got any of your own advice as well than what we've kind of spoke about already. One of the people suggested the same thing as you, Beth, where, you know, just delete social media for the weekend, you don't need to talk to yourself with photos of other people's dads, which is so true. Just don't put yourself through it if you don't think you're going to be able to cope, which a lot of people can't. Just don't look. Somebody else says, do something that feels special, even just a fancier meal to remember them, which I thought was lovely. And it's something that I try and do on Mother's Day, is like treat myself to, maybe a takeaway that she would have liked.
Yeah, if I'm off, I always have a fish and chips on the beach. Like if I'm not working Mother's Day, that's something I always do if I'm not working. That's what I'll do. I'll go and have a nice long walk and a fish and chips on the beach.
Nice.
That's so nice.
That's my like little thing. Yeah.
But it just helps though, doesn't it? Like even if just in some way you feel a bit of a connection to them by doing that, it just makes you feel a little bit more kind of at peace during those days. And definitely, whether you like watch their favorite film or something like that, it makes such a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Somebody else said, don't try to pretend it's a normal day. I ended up literally crying over spilt milk from that.
Oh no.
That sort of goes against what I said with the whole, I just sort of like, and this is what I think.
Everyone's so different.
Yeah, I think I don't like the do's and don'ts, because I think it says like you should fit into like one way. So I think it's like, I suppose it's knowing that just because something's right for me does not mean it's going to be right for you. Like, and you could listen to everything we've said in this whole podcast and say, well, that's a load of crap, innit? And that's absolutely fine.
So
like, do you know what I mean? Like, and that's fine to think that, and you could think that we haven't said a word of sense in the whole thing, and that's you, and that's what you think, and like, and that's absolutely fine. And I think that's what I'd say is, don't worry if.
So important.
Yeah, you have to find what works for you. And like somebody else did say, don't let people tell you how you should spend Father's Day. It's a unique journey to you. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like I think, and also it takes time to figure out what helps you as well. Like maybe on somebody's first Father's Day or Mother's Day, they'd be like, right, I'm going to do all these things that remind me of my parent. I'm going to look at photos of them. I'm going to listen to all their favorite songs. And it's just like,
might just be
hell.
awful. Yeah.
Then the next year they do absolutely nothing, just live a normal day like they would any other day, and that is what helps them. So I think it is like grief in general is a complete work in progress, I think, all the time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it will probably change each Father's Day as well. So like it was recently my mum's birthday, and usually that would be a really big deal for me, and then like this year it just wasn't, and I was like, oh, interesting, my grief has changed a little bit. So like definitely expect that each year you will like want and need different things on that day. So like Nick said earlier, you don't need to keep doing the same thing, because it might become unhelpful actually.
Yeah, I find as well, like some of the days, like I said before, running up to these events are all sometimes a lot worse than the actual day, and I can wake up on the day itself and be like, I kind of, you're
always like, oh well, that was an anticlimax.
Like, I haven't woken up in like floods of tears, like, oh, I'm just like, I'm gonna have a shower and grab some breakfast and I'll just carry on.
yeah
It is funny how we are all so very, very different.
But then actually, like, we're all just the same as well. And we're like, even with our experiences, there's so many similarities, there's so many differences. We're just like nodding along, but like learning from each other as well. Like, I love that. So great.
Yeah, me too. If you don't mind, I'd like to end this podcast with a question to you both, which is my favorite question to ask everyone. So Nick, I'll ask you first. Do you think that your experiences with grief and the loss of your parents has changed the way that you go about your life and your attitude towards it?
It's a tough question, isn't it? I find myself like I'm a much more emotional person now than I ever was. Like, and it's stupid things like I'll cry at something that's on Britain's Got Talent, like that's just like
Guilty.
There was one, and and like I think there were some people doing like some sign language on it this year, and they were just amazing, and I was like bawling my eyes out, and I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, like whereas up until my mum died, like I was just emotionless. Like I wasn't, but like I can't remember crying like before that, and like now like I'm crying at stupid little things, and it's like you know, what is wrong with me? But it's not. It's like, I don't know. I tend to do like when my mum died, I did a skydive, and I've just done crazy things, like, and it's made me want to do everything that I want to do, like, just now, because you don't know how long you're going to live for. And I suppose it's like, and I got a tattoo after my dad died, like, so I just like spontaneous things.
Would he have been happy with that?
No, absolutely hated it. Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely been disgusted. And my tattoo has the lyrics, tomorrow is a promise to no one, which is like words from a Biffy Clyro song, and like,
love it.
So yeah, it's like it's like a less chavvy YOLO, really. Like, so
I
yeah.
literally recorded a podcast with somebody recently, and I asked her that question, and she honestly said the word YOLO in her answer. Like,
amazing.
I was like, yes.
So yeah, like, so that's sort of what I try and live my life by, is like just crack on, and if I want to do something, try and do it. And yeah,
nice. I'll ask you the same question, Beth. Do you think that the loss of your mum has changed the way that you go about your life and your attitude towards it?
I mean, I run a charity about grief. That was definitely
major.
That was definitely not the life plan. And like, my grief just changed everything, I think, for me. It changed it, like, totally the same as Nick. It has made me so much more spontaneous. I also got a tattoo, which my mum would have hated. My dad did hate it, and sadly he's still alive, so I had to face that wrath. He was like, "You'll never work as an air hostess now," and I was like,
oh god.
Okay, that's not really a loss to me. Like, I'm terrified of heights, so but I just think, like, only today me and my husband were having a conversation about like a present that we're going to buy for his mum for her birthday, and he was like, do you think it's too expensive? And I was like, hell, my mum didn't get a 60th, so let's just spend the money that we would have spent on my mum on your mum.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, exactly like Nick said, you don't, it sounds really morbid, but like, you don't have the promise of tomorrow. Like, that is such a great quote, which I love as well. And so, like, just take the chances. And sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I'm running this charity, I've got like thousands of young people like meeting up across the UK, what on earth am I doing? But like, what, like, why not? Like, why not just go for it? And like, just, I don't know, it's made me way more confident and spontaneous, I think. And I mean, it's also been quite bad for my mental health and made me very anxious at times. I'm not saying it's been an easy ride. And like I said at the start, I would give everything up to have my mum back. But I just think once you are in this club, you just have to make the best of it, don't you? And you just, like, whether that's making, like, things really awkward for people on Just Giving who don't know who you are, or like whatever that is, you just have to make the best of it. And I just love listening to this podcast and listening to like other people's stories and just being really like, yeah, people in this club are really powerful and amazing. And so it's just so great to hear, isn't it?
The best people that I have ever met are part of the DPC, like 100%. I mean, it's just so nice being on the same level as people and just hearing people's stories of how they went through something so difficult that can, like you said, just affect your mental health so much and your confidence and your ability to like literally just like live life. But at some point that just turns around and you become this like extraordinary person who like tackles life head on, has amazing relationships with their friends, family, partners, everyone, because you have so much love to give now. We're all fantastic. That was the main point. We're all brilliant people. Well, thank you both so much for your time. This has been an absolute joy. Beth, I am absolutely buzzing for a time when people are able to meet up in person, so I can go to a Talk About Loss group in Manchester, because I've never been to one.
Oh, you so should. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Don't
Get in
tell
touch.
Nick,
You might be able to do like
the Manchester group's my favourite. No,
Oh.
I have no favourites. I have no favourites.
Yeah, I'm kind of like in like a difficult like middle ground between like Chester, Manchester, Liverpool. So it's
Good
kind
for
of,
you
it's
to know.
hard,
We also have a group in Liverpool starting soon.
lovely.
So
Yeah.
you can attend both if you want.
Yeah, more friends, yay!
Yay!
Friends. Yeah, I do. Cause I do all these podcasts and stuff, but I've only done a couple of them with video, so I kind of get to know all these people via like a telephone call. Basically, that's pretty much what it's like. But I'm like, I kind of want to go for a drink with you guys.
You'll be a celeb if you go along to the group. Everyone will be like, "Oh, that's Kat. She does the podcast."
Their parent club.
well, you know.
I'll get all of them on the podcast. How about 25 new sign-ups?
Yeah, literally.
Brilliant. Podcast for a year.
Oh, so wonderful to chat to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's been lovely.